Happy Valentine's Day, and thank you for joining me. I know that there are a lot of things that you could be doing with your time, and if I'm so lucky to have your presence and attention right now, I would really like to thank you for being here with me. I am dedicated to being here every Wednesday night, and usually I have something that I want to talk about, but I'm feeling very empty right now, and I'm hoping that Spirit will fill that empty space, that there's something that needs to come through me, and I can be the conduit to let that through. Because, you know, I know that if any of you are watching the news right now, there's been another school shooting that's taking up a lot of the airwaves. And meanwhile, there's so much going on in the world, in politics, that how do we make sense of it? And then we have the Olympics that I love to get involved in the Olympics. And if anyone has been following along, you'll remember a few weeks ago when I had my Olympic hat with all the pins and my volunteer shirt from the 1996 Olympics. And you know that I love the idea of what the Olympics stand for. This year, here it is in South Korea, of all places, with North Korea joining in, with Russia being disinvited, but then they are allowed to compete now under the Olympic athletes from Russia with the Olympic flag when they win because of the doping scandal. So, you know, what is going on in the world? So we have people who cheat to win at sports. We have kids bringing guns and killing other kids in school. We have politicians who beat their wives, and others who don't believe them or care or want to take up for their right to a fair trial, to justice, when not caring about the women, that it's more important to believe the men, because imagine how we'll ruin their lives if somehow we're spreading false allegations against them. But meanwhile, if a woman or child gets hurt, maybe they're not as important. Maybe it's easier not to believe them. I started thinking when a 17-year-old won, what was it, the snowboarding? I'm trying to remember what it was. I think so. He was the first one to win this year for America. And the statistic came out that if he's 17, that means 76% of the population is older than him. So I started doing the math. That's one of the things that I like to do, because I feel that when we really see the numbers, sometimes it gives a different perspective. So if 17 and under, which is probably 18, and he was actually, I think, days before his 18th birthday. So let's say kids under 18, that would be 24% of the population. So out of the 76 percent of the population that's men, more than half are women, because we know that, because men die in suicides, war, heart attacks, whatever. Men die before women. There's more women, whatever. So let's say out of the 76%, 7% are men of the population of the country. Let's say 36% are men. Now, what about the privilege that we know goes to white men? I believe that 10% of the population is black, so that would leave about 33% left of men, and then about a third of the population is Hispanic, right? So that would leave about 20% of the population, let's say, being white adult men. Let's say, I don't know if I'm right, but my estimated math is, let's say 20% of the population are white adult men. What is it? No, white adult men. Because we know that they have most of the privilege. Now, as far as the ones with more money have more privilege, and that's going to be even fewer. You just start thinking, how do 20% of the population kind of control 80% of the rest of the population? Because kids don't have privileges, and we know that kids are hurt. Women don't have that many privileges. Darker men don't have that many privileges. So I heard a statistic recently, and I'm probably not going to have this exactly right, but it was about a town in Poland. And I think they said, I'm not sure if I have this exactly right, somebody might be able to correct me, but I think they said that 10 Nazis killed 100,000 people in that town. 10 people could send 100,000 through the system of the gas chambers or whatever it was, onto trains to get to a gas chamber or something. 10 people. So how do we give up our power that way to let people take control over us? I think that the grip is leaving from the few who seem to control the rest of us. I think that they are losing their grip, and I think that's what's making this world right now so difficult to walk through, because it's like the ground is shifting under us. Things are changing. Everyone knows things are changing. And sometimes as people lose their grip over things, they hold tighter. And I wonder what's going to happen when the world shifts. Because there is a possibility of, love, right? The Beatles have been singing about it since the 60s. Love is all there is. So why is it so hard to find? And even here it is Valentine's Day. Why is it so hard to maintain? Oh, I had looked up an article. I had Googled because I knew this was true, and I wanted to get a little more information, but I never did finish reading it. Why do so many people break up or divorce the day after Valentine's Day? And it turns out that there's actually a week after Valentine's Day when people get, when lawyers get calls for divorce. It's known. And then as I was Googling, there was something about like the 5 times a year when you're most likely to break up. And I believe one of those would be after Christmas. A lot of people want to stay together, probably after Thanksgiving, after Christmas. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. And then there was something very strange about the Tuesday before the Tuesday before Valentine's Day. Now, why would it be the Tuesday before? But I think that's the number one. I think it has a name, like, something Tuesday. That's the number one time for people to get divorced. So I can see that maybe they stay together, because they don't want to break up beforehand. And then they drop the hammer. Sorry, but I don't want to be with you anymore. But I didn't want to do it before Valentine's Day. Or I don't know. I wanted my roses. I don't know. But it's like predictable, right? I've noticed I do a lot of work with couples and with codependency. And I notice that there is a kind of pattern to how many months, years a person's been in relationship, that there are these like demarcation points. And I say that 6 months is, 3 months is the first one, because you know what? You can keep up the good sex and the, all the newness, and the honeymoon can easily stay for 3 months. Even maybe 6 months. Sometimes even for a year. We say in the work I do, alchemical hypnotherapy, that people drop down projector screens in front of their beloved. And what they do at first is that they project on this screen that they pull down when they're in love all the wonderful things. Now, we know there's oxytocin and all sorts of hormones going on too. But it's like, oh, you're the person I've been waiting for. You're the one. You give me everything I need. Oh, my poopsie whoopsie. And, it's like all good. I'm saying for the first 3 months, 6 months, a year sometimes. And then a new projector screen, that one goes up and a new one comes down. And all of a sudden, what's going on is, you're just like all the rest of the women or the men that I've ever known. And now we're projecting all the stuff that we have always disliked about the opposite sex on this person that was our beloved until then. Because all of a sudden, maybe the hormones have stopped working, and the blinders, the rose-colored glasses have been taken off, and we can see the person for who they really are. Maybe also we start showing who we really are. Maybe at first we want to be just like them, and we pretend that we like all the same things they like. And then soon it's like, oh, I'm really missing my favorite show, and I'm not liking watching all the sports all the time, or vice versa. I want to get back to my sports, and eventually our true self comes out. So what I guess I really want to talk about on this Valentine's Day is that relationships and connection are really important to us. But that idea of relationships goes back to our very, very, very first relationship. And who is that with? The womb. Mom. We're riding inside of her. This is our very first relationship. And how our mom is emotionally, chemically, hormonally, physically, food she eats, everything. You know, our environment is all connected with her. I was even reading an interesting, I don't know if any of you know about the medicine cards that have to do with the animals, that, you know, the animal spirits that may be with us right now. And I pulled Black Panther today. And I loved the very last line about it. It was like, why are people so afraid of the darkness when that was the safest place for us to live for the first 9 months of our existence in the womb? We loved it in the dark. And now all of a sudden it goes dark and we're like afraid of the dark. Ah, there's a ghost. There's something going on. You know, it's going to come get me. Well, the darkness is kind of the place where I live, where I work with the subconscious work that I do. So I have traveled through many, many, many people's darkest places. And, you know, I also work with couples. And not only do we have our own dark places, you could call it, or conditioned environments that we've been brought up with, but when we now have two people, we have both of their darknesses, dark places, and conditioning. I was just listening to Joe Scarborough talk about his upbringing. He just happened to bring up, I can't remember why, he said when he was in first grade and ever since, that the rule in his house was before you go to school, so he's talking first grade, you pick up everything from the floor and make your bed. And so that's how he lives, because that's how it had to be. He'd be, you know, late for school or missing it or whatever. And so he just got conditioned to do that. But how many people are not conditioned? In fact, what I hear about most men is about the socks they leave on the floor, or the shoes that they leave where they take them off and you trip over. They don't pick things up because they were not conditioned to do that. And so when you take different conditionings and expectations and then you try to merge them into one relationship, whoa, what a ride. So where that first projector screen has come down and said, oh, you're everything to me, you're everything I've always wanted, all of a sudden they leave the milk on, you know, cap off or something, or they drink from the bottle, or they, you know, don't do their dishes, or they leave their shoes and socks on the floor, and all of a sudden they're, you know, just like all the rest. So I guess the bottom line is we need relationships. We can't exist without relationships. It's the most important thing for the human soul and psyche, is to be in connection with others. And yet a lot of people can't. It's like, can't live with them, can't live without them. It's just so difficult. So my recommendation is do your inner work. Find out where you're conditioned, so that when someone comes into your sphere, you can see them right away. Because you're not going to project all the good and all the bad onto them, because you know who you are. And you, by being clear about you, you can be clear about them. You can see right away, wow, this person is different from me, and I don't think that I can live with that. Or maybe you can. But what we always think we can do is change them. And that's the thing that we can't do. All we can do is change ourselves. And unfortunately, as I've looked at it from all directions, it all gets back to how we were brought up and what we needed as children, as babies. We needed a mommy that would listen to us, that would love us, that would pick us up, that would look in our eyes and tell us we're the greatest thing ever. But right now, we're not even looking that much in each other's eyes, because where are we looking? TV sets, our phones. It's funny, this my age. I've been doing this work for so many years, 35 years, that when I first would talk about partners that were uninvolved, that weren't there, it's like, is anybody home, that I used to call them a paper face, because I would think of them as always having a newspaper in front of their face. And they, as you're talking to them, they're like, yes, honey, sure, dear, okay. And they're busy reading their paper. Well, these days, it's not a paper anymore. But, papers run out. You can read every page of a paper. The internet never runs out. There's always more and more and more to look at. And that's where we're getting our connections these days. And the connection is important. But the most important connection is in the eyes. And that's one reason that I am doing Facebook Lives rather than podcasts, because we can actually co-regulate each other through our eyes and our smiles. When you have somebody who's looking and smiling at you, do you ever notice it makes you want to smile back? Well, that's what I'm here for. One reason that I know I'm here is to be a friendly face, for people to look in my eyes and see my smile and be lifted up in just a way that only human beings, not only human beings, dogs can do it, cats can do it. But we need eyes. We need something looking at us, talking to us, and being with us. So, yeah, get a dog, get a cat, talk to them, but also get friends. Have someone that you love and be kind to them. Be with them. Give them your attention. That's what we need. And what's going on with the school shootings? What's going on with the blame game and the hitting women and sexually abusing children? There's something that they have not been given. There's something missing in these people. It's not guns that kill, and it is mental illness or whatever you want to call it. But it's not that difficult to figure out. We are our brother's keepers. We do need to keep an eye on people and be aware and be concerned and reach out, like those kids that have the policies now in schools of no one eats alone. Did you ever look for someone to eat with in the cafeteria and look around and maybe even have people move their trays and, you knew they didn't want you sitting there? it's devastating. I was going to say lonely, but it's worse than that. It's soul killing. And so these kids are smart enough to say, no child eats alone. And they're making sure to put their arms around them and take them and sit with them, find them where they are, and eat with them. And it makes all the difference. If I could sing like Lorelei Robbins, who sings on all of her Facebook Lives, I would go into what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's the only thing that we just have too little of. So be kind to each other. Don't just hug your children when there's a school shooting. Listen to your kids. Give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. Connect. Be with them. I guess that's my message for today. You know, happy Valentine's Day. And let's see if we can just start understanding each other more, having more compassion, having empathy for people, reaching out and connecting. We need it. The world needs you. And I appreciate you being here, and I hope that I've sparked some ideas. I am available if you are feeling forlorn or lonely or confused. I really can help. It's inside. The answers are inside. They're not in drugs. They're not in doctors. You know, the answers are inside of you. You really can get to the bottom of it and get back to that feeling of safety. So regulate yourself so you can help co-regulate others. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging with me for a few minutes. Happy Valentine's Day.